Hello everyone, welcome to another video on Write It Right, where I share insights and ideas and my experiences on how to write effectively. So, so in today's video, we are going to discuss uh, the basics to story writing. You can use these steps to write stories or to write a novel or to write a short story. It's up to you. The concepts are the same. So the first step is to create an idea and a concept, which has to be a central and an integral part of your story. Um this idea or concept could be a character that you want to focus on. It could be a setting around which you would want the action to happen, or it could a particular theme that you would want to explore. So the first point is idea or concept. The second is plot structure, in which you create this foundation for your story, which includes the introduction, how you're going to start the first chapter, how you're going to introduce the story. Are you going to focus on the protagonist or some action that the protagonist is doing? Or are you going to focus on a consequence to an action that the protagonist has already uh, pursued or completed? Then you're going to talk about the conflict, which is also part of the plot structure. This is a problem or a persistent challenge that the protagonist uh, has to cope up with. And this is also something that this is a literary device that keeps the story moving forward. The third part of the plot structure is climax, which is the turning point of the story. This is the point where the protagonist overcomes his or her challenges, and the antagonist also realizes his or her mistakes. And this is also one of the most intense parts of the story or novel, because the supporting characters, the uh, all the actions and the thoughts of the protagonist converges to this moment, because throughout the story the protagonist, the hero, the heroine, the leading character, he or she is striving and struggling and aspiring to reach this moment to achieve their goal. That is why it's the most important and the most intense part of your story. Then comes the resolution, which is like it's a point where you wrap up the story. The climax ends, the goals are achieved, and a new beginning uh, is there for you to usher the readers into, maybe with a sequel or just end the novel on a happy note. So, idea and concept, plot structure. The third is characters, very important. Without characters, you cannot have a story. You need to develop well rounded characters who have distinct personalities, and they have their own goals, they have their conflicts, they have their challenges, they have their hopes and dreams and desires. All these characters should be relatable in the context of the story, the plot, the theme, and they should go through some form of change or growth. Maybe the supporting characters do not go through this process of growth, they just help the protagonist achieve their goals, but the protagonist, the main character, has to go through some change or growth. But I advise all aspiring writers that the supporting characters, not all of them, but one or two key supporting characters who have always helped the protagonist throughout the story, they should also go through some form of change or growth or evolution. Then we have the setting, which has to be believable and engaging in context to what you're writing. Suppose if you're writing a story based on some social issue that your city is facing, then obviously the setting has to be your city. But if you're writing a science fiction novel in which the story takes place in this artificial city situated on Mars, then it's up to you to create how that setting could be. The setting has to be engaging because at times this setting, which is a non-living, intangible object or an entity or a thing or a concept, it also becomes one of the characters of your novel. For instance, in the movie Castaway, when Tom Hanks has to uh, leave the island and find someone who could save him, or find city, or find some place where, with life, then that particular island eventually became a character because we could relate ourselves with that island. That what if we are stranded on that island? How are we going to cope up with the challenges? So the setting of your story or novel should enhance uh, the mood, and it should also reflect the story's themes. Then we have the point of view, which is how the reader is going to perceive the story and whose point of view is going to be, whether it's going to be a first person perspective, a second, or a third. And the choice of point of view can heavily influence how readers connect with the characters in the story. Then you have to set the voice and tone of your story or novel, and this voice or tone has to be consistent throughout the story, throughout the novel. It should reveal various aspects of the story, for instance, character traits. It should, uh, the voice has to be reflective of some narrative style, while the tone sets the emotional mood. And through this voice and tone, you are going to use how you're going to narrate the story. And this voice and tone is also going to be reflected in the dialogues, which will eventually reveal character traits. And this dialogue is going to advance the plot, because your story cannot be 100% based on your narration or opinion, because that would be too monotonous. If there are characters in the story, they have to interact with each other. You can show their interaction to some extent, but it has to be accompanied with dialogue, because dialogue is going to explore and explain and emphasize the thoughts that the two characters are having. And this dialogue is also going to explain their emotions and feelings and sentiments towards a particular person, towards each other, towards a task they have to complete, towards their goal. So dialogue has to be there. Now, dialogue is important and essential, but it should not overshadow the story. For instance, if you're writing a story of, say, 20,000 words, then I think 30% of the story could be dialogue, but obviously the dialogues cannot be present in one location. I mean, in every chapter there could be a few dialogues along with your narration. This leads to the next point, which is pacing. You have to manage the pacing to maintain the reader's interest. So you have to balance between dialogues, between the parts where you have to narrate and explain and show action and emotions in your story, and you have to balance action along with those subtle moments in which the readers are just going through a process of reflection of what is actually going on. And then you have to understand the theme. I mean, uh, what underlying messages do you want to uh, promote through your story? Themes do add depth and meaning to your story that give readers something to think about. And the most important part is editing and revision, which obviously comes once you have finished the first draft. So when you revise and proofread, you are basically uh, restructuring your sentences. You are adding uh, synonyms to your words so that there is no repetition. You are maybe deleting a few sentences, you're deleting a few words, you're adding something new. So, editing and proofreading and revision is a process of writing and rewriting and rewriting and more rewriting and deleting and restructuring and rephrasing and realigning and readjusting. And it is used, it is done, it is followed to improve the clarity of what you've written and to make the entire content coherent so that it becomes one big piece of a puzzle, which was a puzzle when you're writing, but now it has uh, it has taken more of a structured form. So editing is important for refining your story and eliminating any errors. These errors could pertain to spelling, grammar, syntax, tenses, parallelism. Maybe there are too long sentences that are boring. You can cut them down into bits and pieces to make it more interesting. So this was a brief overview of how you can write a story or a novel, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you have any uh, topics you would like me to cover in these videos, please do share it in the comments. Please do subscribe to my channel Write It Right, where I have been sharing insights and ideas about writing so that those who are aspiring to write can learn what I have learned and what I have been implementing for the last 2 decades or so. So that was a short video, and keep reading, keep writing. Until next time, goodbye.